It's 6 o'clock. I think we're gonna get started. We're missing one board member, but I think she may be coming in late and when she
Recording
comes-
in progress.
So at this time, I'm gonna call the meeting to order. Can everybody please silence your phones and like the EB used to say, the beepers as well. Okay. Good evening. This board is comprised of 7 members. 4 members of the board should constitute a quorum. The affirmative vote of 4 members should be necessary for the adoption of any motion. If only 4 members of the board are present, an applicant may request and be entitled to a continuance to the next regularly scheduled meeting of the board. If a matter is continued due to the lack of quorum, the chairperson or secretary of the board may set a special meeting to consider such matter. In the event that 4 votes are not obtained, an applicant, except in the case of a comprehensive plan amendment, may request a continuance or allow the application to proceed to the City Commission without a recommendation. Pursuant to Resolution 2021-118, the City of Gables has returned to traditional in-person meeting. However, the Planning and Zoning Board has established the ability for the public to provide comments virtually. For those members of the public who are appearing by Zoom or wish to testify, you must be visible to the court reporter to be sworn in. Otherwise, if you speak without being sworn in, your comment may not be eventually valued. Lobbyist registration and disclosure. Any person who acts as a lobbyist must be registered with the city clerk as required pursuant to the city code. As acting chair, I now officially call the City of Coral Gables Planning and Zoning Board meeting of November 19, 2025 to order. The time is 6:02. Jill, can you please call the roll?
Ignacio Alvarez.
Present.
Alisa Bravo. Alex Bucelo.
Here.
Nestor Menendez.
Here.
Felix Pardo.
Here.
Gonzalo Sanabria.
Here.
Robert Behar.
Present. Notice regarding ex parte communication. Please be advised that this board is a quasi-judicial board which requires board members to disclose all ex parte communication and site visits. An ex parte communication is defined as any contact, communication, conversation, correspondence, memorandum, or other written or verbal communication that takes place outside a public hearing between member of the public and a member of the quasi-judicial board regarding matters to be heard before the board. If anyone made any contact with the board members regarding an issue before the board member must state on the record the existence of the ex parte communication and the party who originated the communication. Also, if a board member conducted a site visit specifically related to the case before the board member will also disclose such visit. In either case, the board member must state on the record whether the ex parte communication or site visit will affect the board's member ability to impartially consider evidence to be presented regarding the matter. Board members should also state that his or her decision will be based on substantial, competent evidence and testimony presented on the record. Does any member of the board have such communication or site visit to disclose at this time?
No.
Okay. Sworn in. Anyone who speaks this evening must complete the roster on the podium, and we ask that you print clearly so that the official records of your name and address will be correct. Now, with the exception of the attorneys, all persons physically in the city chamber who would like to speak on any items tonight, please stand up to be sworn in. Seeing none? We do? Oh, okay. Thank you. Zoom platform participant. I will ask any person wishing to speak on tonight's agenda item to please open up your chat and send direct message to Jill Menendez stating that you would like to speak before the board. and include your full name and address. Jill will call you when it's your turn. I will ask to be concise for the interest of time. Phone platform participant. After the Zoom platform participant, we will go into ask the phone participant to be also to give your name and address on any items that you will be speaking on tonight. I will also ask you to please be concise for the interest of time. At this time, we are going to ask for the approval of the minutes of September 17, 2025. Do we have a motion?
So moved. I'll second.
Roll call, please.
We can do that by a voice vote.
All
It's
in favor?
ministerial.
Aye. Procedures that we will use tonight. We will identify the agenda items by Mr. Collier. Then it will be a presentation by the applicant or agent, followed by the presentation by staff. At conclusion of that presentation, we will open for public comment, first in the chamber, followed by Zoom platform, and then phone platform. I will close the public comments. We will do board discussion. After board discussion, we will entertain a motion and a second. We will do a final board comment, and then we will take a vote. Before we start, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our colleague and chairperson, E.B. Asentat, for his dedicated service to the board as a chair and his great contribution to the city as well. We're deeply grateful at this time for his leadership effort that he has given to the city and to this board. Thank you, E.B., if you're listening. At this time, I'm pleased to welcome two new board members. First, I would like to welcome Ignacio Alvarez to the board. Ignacio, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
I live in Coral Gables. I'm an attorney in Coral Gables on Ponce. I'm a retired police officer. I was retired as a major with Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office after 25 years, and decided that retirement wasn't good enough and opened up my own practice in 2017 and been doing very good ever since. And I'm happy to be here.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the board. I'd now like to introduce Gonzalo Sanabria to the board. Gonzalo, could you also please tell us a little bit about yourself?
We don't want a long meeting, do we? We got a short meeting, so I'm an economist. There you go. I'm an economist by education. I've been in land use and zoning my entire life since I left college. I have my own firm called Real Estate Works, REW Inc. I do a lot of entitlements throughout the whole state of Florida. I have no issues nor any kind of conflicts with the city of Coral Gables, since I don't engage in Coral Gables real estate whatsoever. And also, I served for 19 years in the Planning Advisory Board of Miami-Dade County as chairman. And we did a lot of work there, including the master plan and the concurrency status, et cetera. And I also served in the board of directors of Miami-Dade Expressway Authority as chairman. So transportation is also a second nature to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Gonzalo.
And also, I'd like to send my respect to I.B. Eisenstadt, who spent a lot of time here on the board. It was very helpful as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you. At this time, I want to, for the record, acknowledge that Alice Bravo has come to the meeting, present.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Mr. City Attorney, can you please start with the agenda items?
Yes, agenda item E1, an ordinance of the City Commission providing for a text amendment to the City of Coral Gables official zoning code by amending Appendix A, site-specific zoning regulations, Section A-67, Mahi Canal, requiring additional review and approval for all mooring piles, docks, wharves, davits, boat lifts, and similar structures located in MF and MX districts that abut the Mahi Canal, providing for repealer provision, severability clause, codification, providing for an effective date. Item E1, public hearing.
Thank you.
Good evening, Vice Chair and fellow board members. So tonight's first item is a
So
text.
introduce your name for the record.
Craig Southern, Planning and Zoning Division, City of Coral Gables. So tonight's first text amendment is a portion of Appendix A, Section A-67 of the zoning code, focused specifically on the Mahi Canal. The purpose here is relatively straightforward. It's a text amendment that adds water quality review requirements for new or modified docks, mooring piles, boat lifts, and similar overwater structures within the MF and MX zoning districts. The Mahi Canal is a narrow waterway averaging about 90 feet in width, or an average, where even small changes to any kind of structures can alter circulation, flushing, benthic conditions, and vessel movement. And when navigation potentially drops with new structures being added, water quality is usually the first thing to be affected. So the proposed text amendment tonight that we're taking a look at doesn't change any allowed uses, intensities, or anyone's existing rights. It simply requires applicants to provide a water quality analysis, and it ensures that the Waterways Advisory Board and the City Commission review those findings before approving projects. Applicants must also show compliance with the Florida DEP, which is within Chapter 62-302. The proposed text amendment is basically just keeping the existing framework, but adding an ecological or a science-based check to protect water quality, navigation, and public safety as a redevelopment continues along the canal. Staff finds that this text amendment does satisfy all 5 criteria for a text amendment and recommends approval. If you'd like, we can go within or discuss the text amendment.
I don't see a need for it unless, once I open to the board. So thank you very much. I will conclude the presentation by staff. I'm gonna open up to the public comments. First in chamber, don't see any, so we will close the public comment in chambers. Jill, do we have any in Zoom platform?
No, we don't.
How about in phone platform? We will
I
close
have comments, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry?
I have comments on this item at the right time.
Let me open up to the board.
Thank you.
Okay, so at this time, I'm gonna close the public comment. We're gonna open up for board discussion. Gonzalo, I'll start with you then.
Thank you. I know that property well because I do navigate that area every once in a while. And as you know, on the other side of that bridge, there are some homes. And they do have navigable waters and navigable kayaks and so on that transit through that area. One of the things that concerns me is this. There's 40 current slips, as I understand it from meeting with Jennifer and Craig this afternoon. We counted about 40 current slips, correct? I'm sorry.
So per the Jennifer Garcia Planning and Zoning Director, I did double check that just now. We don't have an application from this property. I'm going off of minutes from an old advisory board meeting, and they indicate 22 to 26 slips, so not 40.
22 to 28, not 40
Could
as
you
we spoke.
identify yourself?
please.
for the
Jennifer
record?
Garcia,
Jennifer.
Planning and Zoning Director.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so being around 28 to 30 current slips,
22 to 26, they
yes.
said.
My concern is if this project goes the way of an RTC development, could that affect the number of slips that can be in place on the Mahi Canal? Do we know that answer?
Well, we know on the west side of the canal, it's 900 feet, give or take. It's about 900 feet. So we would also need to, depending on the size of the slip requirements, that's all that would really be dependent upon. So it would all be dependent upon the measurements within that 90 linear feet.
But that's not necessarily, because that particular site has a maximum allowable slips that they could go. So it's not like you could get 900 feet and divide it by 20 foot and do so many. They have a maximum number of slips that they are entitled to, and that's not going to change. So I don't think that's at this time, Mr. City Attorney. Is that something that we could get involved with, or because we don't know what's happening there anyways?
Well, I just want to remind the board that this particular amendment is specifically for water quality analysis for any kind of development that would happen within the MF and MX zoning districts within the Mahi Canal site specific.
I understand what you're saying, but it precludes us from expanding that into a more generic issue with slips and a number of slips. So quite frankly, Mr. Chairman, I think we could add some language regarding the number of slips that could be in place on this property.
I don't
Because
think,
otherwise,
I don't think we could control that.
Yeah,
Well, the
I
other-
would be concerned with, sorry, pardon my interruption.
one more thing.
Sure,
The other thing that concerns me is the beam of these boats. And now I go to Sunrise Harbor, and I see some of these catamarans are about 20 feet wide in beam. If you create that kind of situation where that can be in place on that canal, it's going to impair navigation to the other side of that bridge. And that's something that we should address at some point soon.
But Gonzalo, with all the respect, I don't think this item has to do with any of what you're saying. You know, I mean,
The number of slips, the size of the boats, anything like that would be beyond the scope of this title. This title only relates to water quality and the impact of any additional slips that would be built and the water quality. Another item could be drafted, and I think it's up to the commission if they want to address this. And you could make a recommendation to the board if you were to recommend approval of this, that your recommendation is you should look at the size of the boats and the number of slips. I will caution you that when you make changes in the zoning code, when people think they have certain rights, it's possible that those rights could be impacted. But the board, if the board wants to request that the commission to take a look at that, that could be part of your recommendation, if that's what you wish to do.
I agree. Now, also, I want to confirm that that water body is under the sole jurisdiction of the city of Coral Gables.
That's correct, right.
Therefore,
That portion where the zoning districts are
understand.
MF and MX.
therefore, I recommend that we do add some language that the commission should consider.
well, we could make a recommendation
motion,
on a
yes, sir.
motion,
Yes, sir.
to do not separate,
Yes, sir.
separate to this, right, Mr. Attorney?
Yes, it would be it would basically a comment to your recommendation for approval.
Okay.
So it would be viewed as a comment to the board as you've commented on other items that are not necessarily related to the item, but you've asked the board, the commission. I'm used to the Board of County Commissioners, even though I haven't worked there for 10 years.
Okay,
But the commission.
okay. Gonzalo, is that it?
That's it regarding this item. Yes, sir.
Ms. Bravo?
So to clarify, this item in and of itself does not approve additional steps.
No. This is only about the water quality analysis requirement.
I'm fine.
Okay.
What is a water quality analysis? Like, what does that entail? Is that very burdensome on the homeowner?
It would be an ecological study that would be done looking at the benthic component. Usually benthic consists of the sediment and any kind of ecological or the life like fish nurseries, crabs, all that kind of stuff that's living in that area. There would be a benthic study that would be conducted. I'm sure they would look at the depth as well, but
And so that would take into account shading from the vessels and that type of environmental analysis.
yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
It also is a manatee zone.
Yes,
It's a
right,
well-known
yeah.
manatee.
There's already signs posted on the site now as well, on both sides of the canal as a manatee zone, yeah. Fish and wildlife.
Thank you, Chairman. No further questions.
Okay. Nestor?
The proposed studies are at cost to who? To the property owner?
To the applicant that would propose any kind of development on the canal. Yeah.
No further questions.
Ignacio?
Within those zoning districts. Yeah.
Right.
Those were my two questions.
Okay. Mr. Pardo, last but not least.
I have a few questions about the water quality. What is the existing water quality level? Thank you. What are the existing water quality levels of this particular canal? Do we know?
I personally can't tell you that, but I would say it's healthy because it does have manatees within it.
Okay. Well,
I mean, I've walked around the property or the canal, and I've seen quite a few fish, but I can't say on a professional
with all due
level.
respect, let's think about this scenario. So someone owns a property there on this particular canal, and the canal, unbeknownst, although there are manatees there are all sorts of manatees in that waterway, and all of a sudden, it just so happens that that canal right now, presently, doesn't comply with any of these levels. So therefore, by adding this to it, without understanding what the current levels are, it is possible that someone that doesn't have a boat lift on their home would not be able to build a boat lift that they don't comply with this, correct?
Well, this does not include single family. I just want to reiterate.
Okay. Well,
Anything, and there's, if I remember correctly, I think it's like maybe 6 or 7 properties in total. And, you know, on the west side, like I said, it's 900 linear feet. I think there's like 3 parcels, but they're all kind of unified already. So
it would only affect the MF and MX.
correct. Nobody that's south of those zoning districts that has single family would be
So again,
required to do that.
it wouldn't be a taking, but
Correct.
it is possible that the people that would develop anything there would not be able to do anything simply because the current level, environmental level of that particular canal may not comply with the levels that the state and the county and anyone else has established, correct?
Well, I mean, we do have, there's already a seawall. It's already a hardened shoreline. There's no natural shorelines there at all. Everything's already been hardened. The north side of the canal is University of Miami. I think it's Dixie that, crosses over Mahi Canal now. I would say that, it's a disturbed canal. It's not in its original, what was there probably hundreds of years ago. So it's a relatively urban area, but that's the thing. Whatever is there now, we just want to make sure that maybe we don't impact it any more than.
So it is possible that that canal right now doesn't comply with any of these requirements, that minimum requirements that they have to comply with from an environmental standpoint, a water quality standpoint.
I wish I could talk intelligently about the ecology of the canal, but I can't, professionally, other than we already know that it's a hardened shoreline. There's already existing mooring piles out there. There's already docking that's there, but it is dedicated as a manatee.
But although if there's any type of mooring or someone wants to go in there, improvement, enhance it, replace it, any of those things, they would have to comply with this.
That's correct.
But don't forget, no matter what, they have to go to Durham, they have to go to all those agents, that are going to be probably more strict than this. This is really, from my experience, this is really a problem. It would be a problem if you were like down in the Keys where you have seagrass and all that, you could impact it. That canal, which is really at the end of the property, which Gonzalo was trying to refer to, which I think is called the Gables Waterway property. So that canal,
Right.
there's no.
Yeah, and there are seagrasses in this canal. That's why we have the
But
manatees
further
there.
down, not.
No, I understand, but that's the reason we have the manatee there, because they're not starving. They're eating those grasses.
So what my understanding, this item will make it a little more stringent to get
Right.
approval.
I don't disagree with that. I'm just finding it a little bit difficult to understand. Don't know what the standard is, but we're setting a standard. of the existing canal quality, water quality.
To me, as much as we want to put that we're going to have a saying or control, this is going to go to Durham, and Durham is going to tell you what you could do and cannot do. As much as we want to say that the city of Coral Gables is going to control that waterway, not really. You know very well that if you want to do a mooring or something, you have to go to Durham. And you have to show, your studies that you're not affecting the bay bottom and there's no seagrass and all that, goodies that they ask for.
And there is no effect whatsoever on the site-specific regulations. This is an addition to.
This is an
you're not
addition to
taking
the
away any of the
site-specifics?
restrictions that exist there now.
That's correct. Now, like I said, ecologically, I cannot intelligently talk about that. But when it comes to circulation or navigation, which would be another part of that analysis, the traffic, I can speak, I'd say, to some degree on that.
But in the site-specific, it tells you minimum dimensions for navigable waters in the area, and all canals in Coral Gables.
Right. In section 3-700, we actually have different canals.
Correct. Different widths.
Mahi canals must have 30 feet of navigable unobstructed area.
Right.
So right now, it's at 90 feet. That's where we're at right now.
But since that, in a case like this, since that canal terminates there at US 1, they're going to have to allow for boat to turn around. So that 30 feet increases. I don't know to what, but there are requirements that you're going to get, that you have to adhere to. That's why when Gonzalo mentioned the beam of the boat, there's regulations that will dictate what you could do and not do.
Right, and like our attorney said, I felt uncomfortable because we started talking about a specific project, which this is not a specific project.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just add again.
Those are all my questions.
Okay, wait, I had Ignacio had a first question.
And I know I'm new here, I don't know this area, but who is this applicable to when you said it's not applicable to single homes?
Yeah, MF and MX zoning districts.
Can you explain that a little bit? Again, I'm
Yeah,
new.
multifamily and mixed-use properties, which I wish that I would have created a PowerPoint tonight to show you guys the location. I unfortunately did not.
Can you just, pardon me, Mr. Chair, can you just narrow it down so he understands where this zoning exists on the canal?
So the canal terminates on the north side where Dixie Highway is. On the north side of Dixie is the University of Miami. So bringing us back down to where the canal terminates right now, just south of Dixie, you have a grouping currently of a couple commercial properties. And on the west side is predominantly MF. There's a little bit of MX zoning as well. And then on the east side is MX, mixed use zoning. I don't know if this is helping or not, but.
Do you know more or less the location that we're referring to? Yeah. No, the
Gables Waterway.
Yeah, Gables Waterway. On both sides is the mixed use. The single family starts further down to the east.
Thank you.
Mr. Gonzalo, you have another comment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just want to emphasize my fear. And my fear is that currently, as Jennifer Garcia and Craig have delineated, there's about 28 to 30 boat slips there. Is that correct, more or less, the number?
22 to 26, if I recall correctly.
My fear is, I don't know how many exact units or density are planned for this project, but I don't want that to translate into a greater multiplier slips on that waterways, because that would really choke off and put a stranglehold on that waterway. So somehow we need to add this comment, please, for the commission to consider or within a resolution.
Go ahead.
So once again, Greg, in essence, we're creating an environmental regulation for this.
Correct, right.
Right,
I mean, in a way, any new impacts, we just want to make sure that
Go
we're
through this
analyzing those
process.
impacts if any new proposed development is coming in
Right, so
on these zoning districts.
Right, so I think along the lines of what the chairman said before, if we want to make a commentary about that, it would be separate from this item, since this is in essence creating an environmental process.
I think it can be added to this item as a comment, yes. I intend to do that.
Mr. City Attorney, I mean, can we do it to this item? And, you know, if you,
Well, I think the board has the opportunity to make any recommendation that it chooses to. It's obviously beyond this title, and it's not really, it couldn't be addressed in this item. But if the board wants to suggest to the city commission that you should look at the number of additional slips that may occur on the canal, I think you can say that to them, but it's separate and apart from the item. It's just a suggestion to the board a suggestion to the commission that they should look at it. But that's only if you all agree with this comment. If you don't agree with the comment, then
we'll see when we get there. Look, I personally, for me, I don't have a problem because I know that there are greater authority besides City of Coral Gables that's gonna say what can be done and not be done here. I don't have any fear of the increase in slips because I know that Durham has a maximum that has been given to that property. But if you, Gonzalo, if you feel that a comment, okay, not a condition, a comment be made to the commissioners, I'm okay with that. So at this time, you know, we're gonna close the board's comment and we will entertain a motion.
I wanted to just bring up one question, is that the water quality was discussed, but the animals were not discussed, which I think it falls short. And the reason is that in any part of Florida, you could have issues with tortoises, bats, I mean, you name, burrowing owls. What about the manatees, which we're losing left and right in the state of Florida because they're starving to death? The question becomes, should that also be added, and not just from a water quality standpoint, but at least that it should be mentioned in there? Because sometimes if you add enough watercraft, it becomes a real problem, for especially the manatees that we've lost through starvation of the seagrasses.
Unless I'm not understanding this correctly, this is not saying that we're gonna have more watercraft there. This is saying that it's gonna require additional reviews for approval if you wanted to do it.
We do actually have benthic habitats. I know I went through that pretty quickly. Benthic habitats is mentioned in here.
Is it?
Any
Okay.
impact?
I missed it.
That's the sediment, that's the jellyfish, that's anything that's within that, underwater area that would be affected. So we also reference Florida Department of Environmental Protection, Chapter 62-302, and I know that they have quite a bit more when it comes to habitats within the water. So we do actually mention benthic habitats, and that is what is the intention of that.
Thank you, I feel comfortable with that.
Chair, I'm gonna move to approve the city's recommendation.
Okay. We have a motion. And we have a second. Do we have any other comments before we call the roll? Okay.
I'd like to add a comment on this motion. Am I allowed to do that at this time?
The motion, the maker of the motion, will you entertain a friendly amendment?
Yes.
What is your amendment?
I would like to concur with Mr. Pardo on the manatee zone because that is a very crucial environmental area for manatees procreating, and they actually live there. I've seen them there as well. So I like to mention manatee per se, word-wise, the word manatees, that zone, to try to protect them as much as we can from the city jurisprudence. Also, the number of slips that can be built on that waterway, to me, it's rather frightening, because once you build way above the number of the current slips, then you start taking out more water body, and strangling that waterway. So I'd like the commission to consider that there be some sort of threshold to protect against higher water density per se, not just higher density of the building, but higher density per se on the waterway, plus protect the manatee zone.
Okay, so essentially, you're saying you're gonna maintain whatever the maximum allowable today for them to keep that number, not to increase those numbers.
The current number.
Okay.
So that's unrelated to the item, but it's a comment to
Yes.
the
A
board.
comment.
It's a comment,
It's
yeah.
a comment to the commissioner. Do you accept that
I
friendly
accept it, yes.
amendment? The motion, Nestor, do you agree with that also?
Yeah.
Okay. Jill, can you please call the roll now?
Alice Bravo,
Yes.
Alex Bucello,
Yes.
Nestor Menendez,
Yes.
Felix Pardo,
Yes.
Gonzalo Sanabria,
Yes.
Ignacio Alvarez,
Yes.
Robert Behar.
Yes. Thank you. Item E2.
Item E2, an ordinance of the City Commission providing for text amendments to the City of Coral Gables official zoning code, Article 5, Architecture, Section 5-309, Trellises, Section 5-310, Wood Decks, and Section 5-311, Pavers and Walkways, to incorporate composite recycled materials as an approved material for trellises, decks, and walkways, providing for a repeal of provisions, severability clause, codification, providing for an effective date. Item E2, public hearing.
So Jennifer Garcia, Planning and Zoning Director. This is a very simple text amendment. We are allowing composite recycled material as material to be allowed for trellises, decks, and also those walkways along the waterway. And this is a good segue from now we're talking about waterway. We're talking about what we're going to be putting next to the waterway, which is the decking material. There are many studies that show that having wood and having paint too close to a waterway can shut off and affect our quality of water in the waterway. So the intent of this text amendment is to allow this recycled composite materials to be used again for trellises, for decks, and for these walkways. There's also clarification that the allowance for the city architect or the DRO to have other approved products to be of solid wood, as those noted above, the mahogany, teak, cedar, redwood, and et cetera. And again, the recycled material had to be at least 60% recycled content. Usually that's plastic bags or PVC materials. There's a couple of companies that are out there that actually produce this recycled composite material. Yes.
Before, I have a question. Do we have, because I know a lot of these companies have multiple colors. Are the city architect is going to determine
Yes.
what color will be allowed or not?
Yeah, I think we still have the requirement that it should be compatible with the main principal building.
Okay. All right, thank you. Before I open up to public comment, that concludes your staff
Yes.
presentation, right?
It's that simple, yes.
Open to public comment, no one in chamber. Jill, anybody in Zoom
No.
or phone? Okay, close the public comment, board discussion. I'm gonna go to my left, start with the left. Felix, can you please start us?
My concern, again, is the Board of Architects. It's just not the material, but how it looks. Some materials, for example, you're trying to imitate wood texture. So some materials, Robert will tell you, you could see a mile away that it doesn't look right, looks cheap, looks this, looks that. I didn't see anywhere where the Board of Architects is going to be approving these materials on a case-by-case basis, because there's so many materials that are out there. So sometimes you'll see, companies like, Hardy Board, and they have great quality materials. Then you'll see something that it's not hardy board, and you could tell 2 blocks away that it's just cheap looking, and that becomes a real problem. I understand, especially the longer, we've seen some of the different materials fail over time, tremendous amounts of time, and I get that. Then you also have the issue of exempting historic buildings. I didn't see a mention of that. For example, if you have a Pecky cypress, you can't simply get one of these artificial materials to look like the rest of it on a historic building that uses that material. So I thought that it was silent on that. I thought it was silent on the acceptability by the Board of Architects as far as some of the materials, the same as paint colors, et cetera.
Right, so this would be reviewed by the city architect, like he reviews any deck permit. If he doesn't agree with what they're providing or what they're, proposing
You said by
to
the
use,
Board of Architects.
by a city architect. If he doesn't approve what they're proposing, he will send it to the Board of Architects. And usually he has a list of what the Board of Architects feels comfortable as far as the material, as far as the company that makes it look a little more real, more grainy and not so glossy.
There are various manufacturers like Trex and Timber, something that have good quality.
Right.
Are we allowed to say, a material, specific manufacturers all equal?
Robert, and as you know, that changes also with time. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, some of these materials were awful. And nowadays, they've gotten so much better, and hopefully they're getting better, in the future.
I used them in my house in the Keys, and let me tell you, it looks like teak, and it stays beautifully done, which is the best thing I ever did. I don't have to maintain, I don't have to do anything.
Well, and that's the point I'm trying to make is there's a difference between, good quality material and those that aren't. You and I know that difference. What I'm saying is to make sure that this is under the control and the purview of the city architect and, the Board of Architects to make sure that we don't make mistakes and then make these buildings look cheap. And I think that would be a step in the right direction.
Right, city architect would still use those approved products, which is basically companies, like you said, and would just make sure the color that they're using is consistent with the building.
And there's also another component to it, which is longevity. Some of these materials which are painted internally, sometimes those colors fade very, very quickly, and then they look awful. You see it also in roofing materials. So what I'm saying is that I think we should be very careful when it comes to the longevity of these materials to make sure that it looks as good 10 years from now as it does the way the day it was installed.
All right, thank you, Felix. Ignacio?
No comment.
Esther?
Yeah, I'm all for this. I think it's a good idea. I kind of want to. I agree with Felix. I think we should be very careful. Staying silent as far as the materials that can be used, the susceptibility to aging. But I'm sure that there will be an added layer of protection at the at the architecture's board that will hopefully guardrail it, similar to having. I know it's very difficult to not give guidelines to individuals who want to use this to the city, but similar to the way that we have approved paint, kind of paint you can use, colors. I think something like that would be appropriate. Maybe some guidelines for the Board of Architectures. I do have the same concern that fading might end up looking bad, but similar to real wood needs upkeep, sanding, varnishing if it's varnished. So I think there's that added component into it. But I do agree that if we're trying to use these recycled materials, we promote or we try and get the people, the end users or the people using the materials to use higher end materials that last longer, look better. I agree with Robert. Those materials, the decks, they look fantastic. And if you upkeep them, they last for a long time, and they look great for a long time, and it's minimal wear and tear and upkeep. So I think it's a very good text amendment to the existing code.
Thank you, Nestor.
Yeah.
Alex?
No comments, Chairman.
Alice?
Kudos to the staff for bringing an innovative solution.
Absolutely.
Gonzalo?
I have a deck on my seawall made of composite materials. It's been there for 25 years. Fantastic. I love it. So I'm all in favor of this.
Okay, perfect. I think it's a great idea. I'm all for it. So with that, we're going to close the board comment. And
One quick question, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, is the city directed to use these composite materials as well in, like, say, parks or anything that's that any projects?
Yeah, so typically, yes.
Okay.
So knowing our CIP team, they like to know what the pre-approved products are, so they can use that and kind of bypass going to the Board of Architects repeatedly number of times. So, yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Good question. Thank you. Do we have a motion?
I'll move, Chairman.
Second.
Can you please call the roll?
I'm sorry, who moved it?
Alex? Second by Gonzalo.
Thank you. Alex Bucelo,
Yes.
Nestor Menendez,
Yes.
Felix Pardo,
Yes.
Gonzalo Sanabria,
Yes.
Ignacio Alvarez,
Yes.
Alice Bravo,
Yes.
Robert Behar.
Yes. E3, Mr. City Attorney?
Yes. Item E3, an ordinance of the City Commission providing for text amendments to the City of Coral Gables official zoning code, amending 14-204, transfer development rights, TDRs, and Article 16 definitions of the city zoning code to establish a conservation TDR program and appraisal framework, providing for definitions, procedures, appraisal standards, and conservation easement requirements, providing a repealer provision, severability clause, codification, and providing for an effective date. Item E3, public hearing.
Great.
Good evening again. Craig, Southern Planning and Zoning Division. Okay, this next text amendment is basically, as Craig Collard just read, to establish a conservation transfer of development right program to our already existing TDR section within the zoning code. This program proposes to incentivize permanent preservation of native and natural habitats, including mature tree canopy and ecologically significant features, by allowing property owners to voluntarily transfer development rights from designated sending sites to approved receiving sites. The text amendment proposes that property owners who permanently protect environmentally sensitive lands go through a grant of conservation agreement, or a GO-SIA, as the acronym would read, and they may receive transferable development rights if provided that they meet the conservation benefits and that are eligible. Eligible sending sites could, in the proposal, be evaluated based on habitat quality, tree canopy coverage, and overall conservation value. Sites demonstrating exceptional ecological value may qualify additionally for ecological bonuses that have also been proposed in the text amendment. These would have to be qualified by environmental professionalists, arborists, and ecologists. Just to give a couple brief examples of maybe some eligible sites within the city of Coral Gables, could be a parcel along Old Cutler that's potentially adjacent to Matheson Hammock with dense hardwood canopy coverage, a large residential lot within Cocoa Plum or Hammock Oaks with mature oaks and gumbo limbo covering over 40% of the property, or even canal frontage parcels along any canal waterway with intact mangroves providing shoreline stabilization and water quality benefits. So the text amendment proposes that an applicant would be required to have a minimum of 2 independent uniform standards of professional appraisal practice, or USPAP compliant appraisals, prepared by 2 qualified appraisers who are members of the Appraisal Institute. Each appraisal will determine the fair market value under existing zoning and land use conditions, and the TDR unit value will be calculated from comparable recent sales or transfers that have already been conducted within the city. Finally, the text amendment provides for review by the Landscape Beautification Advisory Board. And finally, it would have to go in front of the City Commission, and a recording of restrictive covenants. The grant of conservation easement would have to be in perpetuity to protect the conserved areas. So this proposed framework would support environmental stewardship while providing certainty for both property owners and the city, and aligning with the city's comprehensive plan for sustainability, open space preservation, and natural resource protection. So staff was directed by the city manager's office to add this. I also want to add that a lot of these conservation TDRs are relatively common within Florida, especially Monroe County down in the Keys, where there's lots of wetland and mangrove areas. So we've got quite a bit of those, so we thought we would try to take advantage of that. So any questions for text amendments? Staff is here.
Whenever.
Thank you, Greg. Before we bring it to the board, any open to the public comment? No one in chamber? Jill, anybody on Zoom or phone platform?
No.
Thank you. Close the public comment. Open it up to the board. Felix, since you had a question, you can start.
Yes. I find it very difficult to wrap my head around this, and I'll tell you why. When we first developed the TDRs many years ago in the city, it was specifically to save historic structures, which had a certain footprint that could be developed to a certain place. Why? Because in the zoning world, you have setbacks, you have maximum densities, et cetera. So someone that had a historic building, if they could build, let's say, 10 units or 6 units or X amount of square feet, then it was very easy to be able to say, well, this is how we're going to extrapolate, put a price on this, and then put it in a till that it could be used later on by a developer. This is impossible. This becomes the well that will never go dry. And then that's the participating, then where do you dump those TDRs? So it's very difficult to compare the mangroves in the Keys because it's used specifically for, in a very limited, very limited way. The other
Intensity, yeah. Intensity versus density.
Exactly. And it's the same thing as, let's say when some of the sugar industry gave up in the Everglades, certain areas specifically to be able to clean the Everglades, and they were paid hardcore money for that. It wasn't that they were given sites to build high-rises around Lake Okeechobee. This, right now, I cannot support it under any condition because there isn't an assessment of the limits of this. And it will dwarf the historic buildings that we have that are eligible today for those TDRs. I believe that there's no limit, no understanding of what the ramifications were. And the other thing is that when you read it, it becomes extremely subjective within a handful of people to be able to provide that. What I would hope is that there would be more restrictions in those areas which are restricted now by state, by federal, by state, county laws in preserving these areas with those fully mature specimen trees, the same as wetlands. Wetlands do not give TDRs to people to build more somewhere else. So the evaluation of one thing versus the other is very difficult. I have a tremendous issue because right now we don't know what the ramifications are going to be of using this. I think I personally believe this item should be tabled until we see much more specificity in what the ramifications are going to be, from this. It sounds great, well, we could save a tree. Well, before it used to be we could move a tree. We could do this, we could do that. But I think that it could be abused and used incorrectly. Those are all my comments.
Before I give it to Craig, what are the implications on this item as far as, give me your opinion.
Well, I think it's going to be judged individually about whether that's something that the city finds to be an appropriate use, that it would qualify for a conservation easement. It's going to be evaluated. I believe does it provide for approval?
Yeah, yes, I mean, the application would have to go in front of the Landscape Advisory Board and the City Commission.
So it's got to be something meaningful. It's not just, we'd like a TDR for a tree. I think that it's
40% of ascending site would have to be completely covered in canopy coverage.
But
and it would have to,
The reason I'm asking, because are you really allowed to take down those trees?
well, there's a whole process for tree removal as we have now. But this is an incentive. I mean, the whole purpose of this is to incentivize what we do have left within the city and to give some kind of benefit to preserve some of these areas in perpetuity.
I think that, and today, I think this morning in the code enforcement, there was a case that a contractor excavated very close to the roots of the tree. It toppled over, and there was a fine. I saw it on the $12,500 if I remember. That's nothing. If you don't put severe penalties if you're going to take one of these mature trees, then it's meaningless.
Mr. Chair, if I could
Chairman,
add
if I
something. Well, our attorney mentioned there are 3 levels. As a simple example, when you're at the county, wetlands, for example, the property is still owned by the owner of the land. So let's say part of their land is in wetlands. The conservation component is owned by the county. So in other words, the county owns the conservation component, but the land is owned and taxed to the property owner. So let's say you own a piece of land that's, say, 10 acres. Half of it is wetlands, and the other half is not. You can build on the part that is not wetland, but you don't get TDRs for the wetland because of the conservation area that is actually owned by the county. That's the way the law is written. In this particular case, it's so open-ended that, as you said, I remember a case many years ago where someone went into a parcel in the North Gables, and they tore down, I think it was 25 100 and some odd year old oaks just on a Sunday. Ended up paying like $1,000 a piece. That is awful. So we have laws and rules, and we're not applying them, but now we're going to give TDRs, which we have no idea how many TDRs there are out there, because it's not buildings, historic buildings that you could count, you could map. I think this needs a lot more work to understand it.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Gonzalo.
I'm in total opposition of this ordinance for many reasons. I think the motive is good, it's benign, the intent as well, but the language is so obtuse and it puts a stranglehold on the property owner as well. I think as far as TDRs have very little value. To put a TDR as a bonus for somebody essentially handicapping the value of their property, that's what they'd be doing. It's really unfathomable. I don't understand why this even is before us, because this is a very convoluted ordinance and it doesn't respect owners' rights. Plus, it puts a very high economic burdens on the owners. For example, you got to have 2 MAI appraisals to do the initial steps to get these TDRs, which are worthless. They're not worth anything in the marketplace, because I dealt with TDRs many times. And that is about what, $9,000-$10,000 each, or $20,000 just to get an idea of TDRs. Then you have to have a maintenance agreement signed and sent and be part of the record on this property as well, which is another limiting factor to the property owner. I just don't understand. Plus, the TDRs, if you get them, they have a total lifespan of 2 years. You don't use them in 2 years, you can't even get a café con leche with that. So I'm telling you, I understand the concept, but this is something that I cannot support.
Okay,
It's just too obtuse, too convoluted.
thank you. Alice?
Well, I think is an interesting concept, and could you elaborate the steps? Let's say you get through the process, and who finally approves it, staff or the city commission?
So an application would come in, it would go through our DRC process initially, and then it would go into the beautification. We've also got a requirement that the Green Space Management Division would have to take a look at it and make a recommendation as well. And then it would finally go to the city commission for final approval.
And I guess throughout this process, we determine if this is a property that everyone is really interested
Exactly.
in conserving.
So we would have to go through a public hearing process. Yeah.
And that process would also evaluate whether the property is developable to start with.
Exactly. All of the environmental and ecological assessments, just basically signifying if the natural habitats are mature. I mean, that's...
So to alleviate some of our comments that we've heard here today, it wouldn't be like willy-nilly to preserve just a piece of property that would otherwise you couldn't develop or you could develop.
Well, this would be a voluntary component from the property owner, And that's the thing is and without throughout the nation, there's lots of conservation, transfer of development rights, agricultural, ecological, like I said, down in the Keys. They have different ways of how they do it. This is the way that we're proposing currently. But we do feel like it would be a healthy addition to our current transfer of development rights, which predominantly is right now just within the historical component, where the historical division, they take historic preservation, they look at that through their board. And then there's also an open space component, and now we would be proposing to add a conservation component as well.
Could you try to address some of the concerns that the board members raised as to why this is beneficial?
I think maybe from what is being, so how we currently calculate or how we're proposing to calculate, from what I understand, is maybe probably the biggest concern. Is that accurate?
I would say so. There's no assessment of the amount of area or the conversion. And remember, you're converting acreage to square footage of buildings. It's like apples and oranges.
So the number of TDRs would equal the average fair market value divided by the TDR unit value. Now, we do currently have a TDR list that we've utilized in the past, and we could reference that as a reference point. But
But Greg, to his point, and how do you, let's say that you have a property in Snapper Creek, and the property is a 1 acre of that property has beautiful mature oak trees, gumbo limbos, whatever. How do I put a value? Because TDRs, I disagree with my colleagues. TDRs are very valuable, because TDRs are, whether it's density or FAR, are very valuable in the city of Coral Gables. How do I equate 10 trees to a value of a TDR?
well, it's going to be more than that. It's going to basically look at that square footage component and give a fair market valuation. And you're right, other places do it in different manners. They look at a portion of the intensity or the square footage of that property, and they'll give a fraction, and then they'll only allow a certain floor area ratio to be transferred. This particular one, which has gone through different reiterations throughout the review process and the composition process, that's what we've gotten to is the fair market average
But
value.
haven't we done this already with parks? So we
have that
evaluate,
right now.
somebody wants to donate a park to the city, there's a valuation on the amount of the park area to be done.
Yeah.
And you calculate what the value of the property is, and then you convert the value to what the TDR is. I presume in this case, I'm going to make sure I understand this.
Right.
Because math was, reason I'm a lawyer, not a doctor, is because math wasn't my strong suit. But anyway,
I could read
There's gonna
what
be
the
a va-
code says. I could read what the code says if you'd like.
yeah,
about
I
the
mean, there's a
calculation.
valuation on the property that's to be preserved. And there's an easement where essentially that area is not going to be touched, and it's recorded, correct?
Correct.
And so there's a valuation for what that's worth, and that's going to be calculated.
So for the open space portion that we currently have in the code, this is how it reads, just hopefully for clarity a little bit. TDRs eligible to be transferred from the property shall be calculated as follows. The difference between the existing gross floor area on the property and the maximum floor area permitted on the subject property by the applicable zoning district requirements, including any available development bonuses.
That's exactly what I said. In other words, it's restricted by the restrictions of the zoning that exists there. So if you apply this way, just imagine you're applying it to right-of-ways, public right-of-ways, because we have a series of oaks, and maybe that particular street was never dedicated. Now they can ask for a TDR based on, it was never buildable to begin with. I think maybe I'm completely out of step with this because we are comparing buildable area that could have been maximized where historic buildings that have a certain value are. The buildings that were not historic could be torn down and new development be built there. But the reason the TDR was incorporated was to be able to save that. The difference today is that many of those areas that you gave as examples down on Old Cutler, for example, are in these extraordinarily large setbacks which could have never been built on. But now you're going to give those homeowners development rights when those trees and natural resources are protected by city ordinance, which sometimes when people violate them, they are not held accountable in the right way.
I just want to clarify, it wouldn't be for that particular property that would be having the conservation easement permanently attached to it. It would have to be transferred to a different property. So that's the thing. You couldn't add any additional, if you put
No,
40 per, yeah.
Yeah, I understand. That's going to be sold, it's going to be put somewhere, and then you're going to have a receiving area somewhere else.
Correct, right.
There was a reason that the TDRs were done for historic buildings within a certain area which started in the CBD area.
Right.
There was a reason for that because of the higher density, et cetera. In other words, it could blend in better. Now, you're not going to have enough receiving rights because it is a bottomless type of amount of land area. When you look at our city's interpretation of recreation area, one of the things that they count in there for recreation are large areas that really are not accessible to the public. They're not developed, and they're in the south part of the Gables. What I'm saying is that trying to save these trees, you don't allow people to simply cut them down. I just don't understand the complexity of doing this, and there's no hard fact of the amount that can be saved because there's no assessment, and then there's no transfer area specifically designated for this type of
Well, the
conservation.
assessment is part of the requirement process.
No,
That would
but
be a part of it.
I'm talking about the city's
You mean
assessment.
for the city as a
everything.
whole?
Correct.
How much hardwood hammock do we currently have within the city? Is that the?
Right. If you were taking a golf course,
Right.
it's 160 acres, you could do the math really quickly.
Right.
But that golf course was designated for recreation. It doesn't have any TDRs there.
Right.
Even though you have these massive trees that are beautiful on the golf course, it's not there. There's no combination of this. The park example that our city attorney came up with is normally in an urban area where that park area that's being donated
Has a value.
I'm sorry?
Has a value.
Has a value. Why? Because, someone's going to go in there, buy it,
Right.
and it's X amount of millions of dollars, and then you could take that and put the units here or there and use your imagination.
I mean, that's what staff is trying to say, is that this conservation area does have value, and,
Well,
preserving it.
Let's
would-
continue, and we'll, Alex,
I don't have any questions. I just have a few comments, or I guess a statement. I happen to disagree with certain colleagues of mine. I think it's, to Alice Bravo's point, I think it's voluntary on the homeowner's part. I think it is very specific. And quite frankly, I happen to agree with the ordinance. So on my end, I'm in favor of it, so.
Lester?
I echo what Alex said. I think we're just getting into the weeds a little bit about this. The way I read the language, it has to deal with specific ecological parcels. So I think it's a little bit different from historic homes or rights of ways that have canopy. I think you have to qualify. There's a qualifying criteria. So I think it's a little bit more specific than just that. I think the language is pretty clear, I think we do have guardrails for eliminating green space, whether the teeth or the remedies or the punishment or whatever you want to call it for eliminating that green space nilly-willy should be a little bit tougher. I think I agree with you there, but I don't think that this has to do with the language in the ordinance right now. And if you want to add a comment, I think that would actually be pretty productive as far as the enforcement of the removal of any of these protected trees by the city. But yeah, I agree. I think the language is spot on.
Mr. Chairman.
Can I give me a second? Let me get Ignacio, and then I'll come back to you.
Yes, sir.
Ignacio, go ahead.
Who are the approved recipients to the TDRs?
So that's the thing. Right now, it would have to be determined upon that application process if it would be an eligible receiver site. Yeah. So.
Gonzalo?
Are we talking about a specific parcel or parcels right now? Because it's not identified in this, it's not identified.
No, we're
yet.
not. I mean, the idea is to create this
Wait.
conservation
I
component.
understand from the comments of Mr. Menendez that it does address certain parcels. Can you identify what those parcels are?
I'm unfamiliar with those.
No, my comments were more to the language here, and what I read, it speaks to certain ecological that would qualify, that has a certain amount of canopy or native foliage or trees and please correct me if I'm wrong. I think you have to
Mature habitats. that
mature
have
habitats, like
full
you have
canopy.
to qualify. Certain criteria that you have to qualify. It's not just, I have 3 nice oaks on my 5-acre property, therefore I qualify for this specific TDR. Maybe you qualify for another one similar to what Felix was talking about the historic homes. Maybe if that qualifies for that TDR under a separate ordinance, but I think as far as what I'm reading, this is pretty specific to certain ecological habitats, and it's to promote the preservation of these certain ecological habitats. At least that's what I.
With a minimum of 40%.
Not in all circumstances.
Give me an example.
No, I'm saying.
It'd be a case-by-case circumstance.
Right, it's a case by case. If you.
That's why it's an application process. And
And TDRs aren't available for historic homes. It's commercial properties.
I don't know, I was just talking to what you were saying
No,
about
right.
the historical.
It's historic buildings.
Right.
That
Historic
are.
buildings.
are
Okay,
commercial.
sorry, thanks for clarifying.
Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman.
historic buildings.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And with the understanding of my colleagues, I've heard everything you had to say. I did study this thoroughly, and I'm going to make a suggestion for consideration, that this item probably requires some edits. They're constructive and positive.
Before you go, let me
Can I
finish, because I
Can
haven't given my opinion yet.
I understand, but
If you're gonna make a motion or a recommendation, I will
Sir,
bring it back to you.
I am leaning that way, if you will allow
Okay,
me to do
then,
that.
you
Thank
want to say something, make a motion before I make my statement?
Yes, sir.
And
do
then
want-
I'm gonna hold you back till I finish, then I'll bring it back so you can make a
You
comment.
have the words.
Thank you. Look, in principle, I like this. I am a bit concerned how we do the process. My biggest concern is that we give, after all the evaluation, everything is done, and go through the city, go through the different boards, and everybody says yes, we give TDRs. How are we to assure ourselves that later on those conservation areas are maintained and not taken down and all? Because who is going to enforce those areas?
The GOSIA, the Grant of Conservation Easement. So they would have to be dedicated in perpetuity, recorded with Miami-Dade County, recorded here with the city clerk's office. So, I mean, they're supposed to be within perpetuity for all time.
Okay.
So that's the intent.
Those are, I mean, I think we do need a little bit more clarification. I think I agree with some of the comments, because I don't feel like I have enough information.
Okay.
And perhaps we need to bring it back.
Direct staff, and we will, it sounds like the calculation component is definitely one of the items.
And the concern, some of the areas that you mentioned, down on Old Cutler, those are residential areas.
Single families.
I'm sorry?
They're single families, right?
And they're single families, so they don't even qualify for TDRs, which is one of the points I'm
That's the
making.
point.
And remember, first rule of physics, Newton's first law is physics. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So when you take those units, where are you going to put them? We don't even know where the recipient area is. Is there enough space? Are we going to put them somewhere else? I don't know. They don't know.
So clarification in receiving site and ascending site, is that one of the items that would be?
That's one of the items.
Yes.
The other thing is that if some of the areas that you're looking at are single-family residential, I think you're opening a Pandora's box that you will not be able to close, okay? Because in the single-family residential areas, some of these areas, for example, some of the beautiful areas that we have in the southern part of the Gables, you have these beautiful homes overlooking the bay, and they're still part of their property, they have maybe 30, 40, 50 feet of mangroves, the entire width of their property, and their neighbors. And they cannot cut them down, but they must maintain and trim them. There's no covenant on the property normally, but they have to pay a tremendous amount of to people that are qualified only to do work within those mangrove areas, and they must be supervised by Durham. So that's without having any of those.
Those
things.
probably would not qualify then.
No, I understand, but what I'm saying is that the way it's open-ended in the single-family areas, that's point number 2, they should not be included in there. And I think that a preliminary assessment of these areas and the conversion, the formula, the mathematical formula should be shown to be able to understand what is the volume and then where do we put it in the transfer area. It would be, because the only thing you're going to do is devalue the value of the TDRs that you have already in your pool of TDRs that the city has from historic buildings. So you will dilute this. It's almost like a Bitcoin conversation.
All right, thank you, Felix. Gonzalo, before we close
Thank you,
it.
Mr. Chairman. I'm open to a deferment of this item, which I will support in case of further edits and clarifications, because as it stands now with this language, I am in total opposition of this because it's too confusing. It puts a great deal of hardship on the property owner as it reads. So I would like to make a motion to defer this, to fine tune the language, to do some further edits. If you will allow me to do that motion, I will make that motion.
I'd like to second that.
Okay, but if we do that, we have a motion and a second, we have to be clear, give the staff specific instruction of what to do. So when they bring it back, we could look at it in a more positive manner.
Mr. Chairman, what I would suggest, instead of listing them here now, is for staff to simply look at the recording of this conversation that we've had. All of us have had our comments, and this would give the ability of, staff is smart. They can go in there and see what the concerns are and how to address them.
We've had several reiterations of this. Probably initially it was quite a bit longer, quite a bit more detailed. But most of the transfer of development section of our code is relatively simple. And this was and it still is the most complex currently within the code. But from what I'm understanding, from what the board is, sending and receiving site clarity is one of them.
Exemption of single-family.
Calculation.
Right.
Look, I think his comment, go through the, the records, and then you could come back with it. So I'm sure you can see many more.
So we don't miss anything.
Yes.
Can I ask the department, where is this item? This item has not been heard by the city commit.
This item.
This hasn't gone to first reading yet, has it?
It has actually gone to city commission previously by the director. Let me see here real quick. It did go last month, October 14th. I think primarily as a discussion item. But
okay.
yeah, the ordinance was discussed, yeah.
When can you bring this back to us?
We,
Next meeting, you could.
next scheduled meeting.
So we have a motion and a second to defer the item, and we're gonna bring it back next scheduled meeting.
When is that? When is that next scheduled meeting? Do we know the date and time? I don't know if we're re-advertising, but if
December
we
10th.
announce the date and time now, you don't have to re-advertise, but it may be the department re-advertises anyway.
Mr. Chairman, they have a heavy, in my opinion, they have a heavy lift in figuring this out. I would let them come back to us when they're ready.
I just want to clarify something. So this is one property. So a property owner that has an acre can't convey half their property to the city to convey for TDRs. They would have a non-conforming property. That's not an option. You can't have your side yard be conveyed and get TDRs. That's not.
So
what
this
we're
doesn't
proposing.
apply to single family.
No, right, but.
Could it be zoned single family? But there can't be a house on the property, and you can convey your backyard to the property, to the city for conservation TDRs. That's not what's being proposed today. What's being proposed today is a property that's zoned single family. If you were to figure out how much square footage you could develop with the land and try and sell TDRs that way, you couldn't get anywhere. The property would be worth too much. You can't sell TDRs, no one would buy it. It wouldn't be worth the money. It wouldn't be worth the process. What's proposed to you today is to see the value of that land, divide it by the going rate of TDRs, and convey the land to the city to be conserved for conservation purposes. And that would be the value that the homeowner would have had, is how much TDRs they have on their property.
So, can I ask a question? Because I'm confused now.
That's really confusing.
This is going to be a conservation easement. The easement is going to be in favor of the city for preservation. It's not actually, you're not actually conveying the property. Are you conveying?
Yes, so the language in the code says that it's being conveyed to the city, just like an open space parks is being conveyed to the city with the easement on it.
That's going
Oh,
to
with the
create
easement
other
on it.
issues.
Okay.
So that's going to create a mess.
It's going to be a mess.
How you on a 2-acre site?
Replat it.
Yeah, exactly. That will require if I'm gonna convey it to the city, we're gonna have to replat, because then I'm gonna lose control of my property, that area.
Exactly.
And that's why I gave the example of the wetland. If you own those 10 acres and those back 5 are wetland, you still own them, you're responsible, but the conservation area is owned by the county.
So that would not be an application that would come before us to do that. It's not an option you have. You have part of your properties in the wetlands, and that's what you own.
But Jennifer,
But if there's
if
a block somewhere that's zoned single family, there's no development on there, it's thick with trees, you could take advantage of this and convey it to the city through this conservation TDRs.
and the city's gonna take ownership of that conservation area,
Yes.
so you're gonna replat your property to dedicate that
No, you're
portion?
not replying anything. You are giving your property to the city in exchange for TDRs.
How do I define the
The
boundaries?
entire property. You're
No.
talking about the entire property.
No.
Yeah, it's a vacant lot. It's full of trees. It has ecological value to it that you are going to exchange those with TDRs for the city.
If you're referring to a vacant lot, it could be a different story. But if you have a large parcel, large property, and half of your property is conservation area, how do I?
Then you can't take advantage of this ordinance.
So that doesn't apply to you.
Right.
So, just so I understand this, somebody can't convey their backyard
Correct.
because
No.
their backyard may be what they need in order to satisfy the zoning.
The open
By zoning.
space.
So if it's a 1 acre zoning and you were to convey half an acre, you wouldn't comply with the zoning.
So this
This
will
is
be a-
really for vacant, these are for vacant lots. It's not for,
Not single family.
Well,
Not
but
someone's
it
front
could be a
yard.
single-family lot that becomes, a vacant lot. I don't know where you're gonna find it, but let's say in case you do find it, you have a vacant lot that you're gonna convey to the city, and it becomes no different than a park.
Right. But
Right?
in this instance, since it's probably single family,
So you wanna put a value to that
Yes.
property. And that value, let's say Snapper Creek, for example, and the property could be worth $2 million. So they're gonna get that value in return through TDRs.
Right.
That they're able to sell the TDR to receiving sites.
I mean, that's a very narrow number of parcels that are still
Yes.
vacant.
And
We're
that's
not,
why-
we're not, and so your concern about diluting this is not an issue because there are only going to be a few sites that are going to even qualify for this.
But I would like to see that assessment from staff. Hey, it's only
How
these
many
areas.
vacant parcels? Can they really assess how many vacant parcels might qualify
wouldn't
for
want to
this?
promise someone's property because this gets vacant, that it would qualify for this robust conservation land. You know what I mean?
can't
'Cause
imagine
just because it's
how many-
vacant
Motion
doesn't
is
mean that
second,
it's going to
let's
have
call,
a
Because we
habitat
may
on
get
it.
changes.
That would be very difficult to assess because you don't know what's on the property.
Yeah, I mean, the truth of the matter, you're right, this is very, very limited amount of property that will qualify for this.
Yeah. So the
So
question
do
was,
we know, we have no idea, we can even, I don't know how could staff even bring back an assessment? Because what are they gonna go, use Google Earth to, a satellite image to determine?
Look, the one thing that, like, one property that I would think that would qualify would be like something like Fort Phillies Farm that has already been developed, that was pretty at the corner of Old Cutler and 57th. I don't know if it's in the city of Coral Gables, but that was like a 5 or 6 acre parcel that had.
It's in the city of Coral Gables.
That is, right? So I think that parcel had a lot of natural habitat. It was used as a farm before. I think we're talking about something pretty specific like that, right? Or I know that there's, Robert keeps bringing up Snapper Creek, which there is like a big, I think like a 3 or 4 acre parcel on the lake right now, which I don't know could or could not qualify. I guess it would have to qualify through the process. Somebody would have to go there and assess and say, yes, you qualify for the ecological exemption or bonus for the TDR. So I think it's a pretty, but the way I understood it, it's not like if I own 5 acres, I can knock down 5 houses and then all of a sudden I'm going to qualify for this
In
TDR.
a case like you say, that 3 acre site, I'm in favor of giving TDR so we could preserve
keep
that.
that.
Correct.
I would say
I think this is
same
the
too.
whole point of this ordinance.
Yeah.
So there's no assessment of the properties, and there's no assessment of the receiving area.
The receiving sites, as you know, are our CBD, our North Ponce area, North Ponce mixed-use district along North Ponce Leon, and the design innovation districts. Those are our receiving
That's already in
areas.
place. The receiving sites are very limited areas, not anywhere in the city.
Well, I just can't vote on the way this is presented.
And there's no, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
There's no expansion of the receiving sites, or is the receiving sites to be
With this
determined?
ordinance,
With this ordinance,
so it specifies that, somewhere in there, I think towards the end, towards the city commission, that the receiving areas are the same. The commission does have the authority to expand to a different receiving area if it's zoned mixed use.
Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and a second. I'm gonna have to take the roll on that. I feel a lot better now that it was a little clarification.
Mr. Chairman, with the motion to second, when we defer it, when they're ready and prepared, not necessarily at the next meeting, because they may not have the proper time to do an evaluation. I don't want to put them on a time clock because that could be pressure them too much. So
Yeah, but by the same token, I want to ask staff when you're going to be ready, because I don't want to prolong this for another 3-4 months.
exactly
I wanna see-
whatever it takes to
You
do it
know,
right.
if you're ready next month, we will schedule it for next month. If you need additional time,
So what assessment are you looking for?
I honestly, after the clarification, I don't think I need much more.
And I think at the beginning of the presentation of the item, you mentioned that this mimics the process that was already in place, and that's why the restriction of the recipient in the CBD.
We have a motion and a second. Let's take the vote on it
Motion was to defer.
to defer.
To defer.
Nestor Menendez,
No,
Felix Pardo,
Yes.
Gonzalo Sanabria.
Yes.
Ignacio Alvarez.
Yes.
Alice Bravo,
No.
Alex Bucelo,
No.
Robert Behar.
No. Okay, so that motion failed. Do we have a motion, a different motion?
I'm going to move to approve city's recommendation.
I'll second.
Any conditions, not condition, any suggestions to
I
that?
think it's, as I stated, I think it's very narrowly tailored.
I will make my comments on this motion.
We have a motion and a second.
Yeah.
Let's take a vote on this.
Well, I'd like
But
to ask.
before that, I'd like to make a comment as well.
Go ahead, I'm gonna let you make a comment.
I think this ordinance is confusing. It's actually a hardship on the property owners. It doesn't solve anything really, and there's no value to TDRs that can be assessed monetarily. I don't understand what is a rush involving this unless there's something else that I don't know about. And if there's something else I don't know about, I don't understand why hasn't been identified at this time in its public hearing. So if there's something else that we don't know about and we find out later that there is, I will be greatly disappointed that we went forward with this without total clarification what this is all about. So my vote is absolutely no.
Okay, when it comes to it. Clarification, why you said this was gonna put a hardship on properties? This is voluntarily. If you don't want to, nobody is telling you that you gotta do that. So if you want to do this, you're putting your self-imposed hardship. The city's not mandated that your property has to do this. So there's no hardship on behalf of the city, Gonzalo. I mean, that's my opinion. Unless legally, city attorney, you told me that the city is imposing hardship on property. This is, you have the choice to do this. I wish I had a little bit more but I can tell staff to identify sites that from where.
And if I can clarify, if someone pursues this, it's because they're willing to give their property to the city and cash out their development rights and sell them to someone else. So it might help someone that, and they're doing this voluntarily, rather than developing what they're allowed to develop on the property.
Correct, yes.
And I
Chairman,
will
I
say
had a question
something
just-
on the item. It does indicate in the beginning, the purpose of this under the underline is actually the transfer of the property to the city. So that is listed as a purpose.
So,
It says native and natural habitats on land conveyed to the city to incentivize the permanent preservation of native habitat, mature tree canopy, and natural ecosystems with the city. And it's also pretty narrow in that it's got to be something more than just a minor thing. Right.
so, Mr. Chairman, do any of the board members here know how many TDRs the city have in their bucket of TDRs for development, for developers to buy?
Do we have
Does staff know?
staff, Jennifer, do we have an idea how many TDRs the city has available?
And the city's marketing
That are
TDRs.
TDRs in the city.
Actually, it could be more than the city. It's the city and other people that have TDRs. How many TDRs are available now?
But you don't know because some property, historic property, may not have applied for the transfer of TDRs.
Correct. But right now, they have a well of TDRs. How
Well,
many?
that's sold in the private sector, so we don't have a list of,
Does the city own properties? Do you have any idea how many TDRs are based on city-owned property? Because you cannot go into the private property.
Right, exactly.
That's not realistic to have that information. Properties that are owned by the city, do you know if there's any TDRs that are available?
I know there are a few, 'cause I think we did sell some on public, public hearing, to the Codina property.
Are we
as well
talking
as to
10,
the Avenue.
100, 1,000? Do we know how many TDRs are available?
Well, it's more than 100, yes.
So is the city
It's
running
probably
out of
less
TDRs?
than 500,000.
Is the push for this because the city's running out of TDRs? They need a little,
No, who knows?
I would think it's more on we're trying to preserve, what I understood, I think we're trying to preserve green space.
well, I mean, if you
That's-
run out of historic buildings where TDRs are available to preserve them, then the TDRs die out eventually.
Let me ask you a question, your opinion. Let's use the example that Nestor brought up, that property in Snapper Creek, which is a large property. I don't know how big it is.
I think it's like 4 acres.
Okay, if that property, which is a beautiful, by the lake, beautiful piece of property, that property owner says, you know what? I want to preserve and do it. I'm going to transfer to the city. In return, I'll get the value of the TDRs. You don't think that would be a benefit to the city?
Well, the question is, I think it's a little more complex. I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate what you're saying. But what I'm saying is that the second component, the second shoe to drop is, where is the receiving site? And what is the equivalent of the impact of that particular parcel? Is it 10 TDRs? Is it 1 million TDRs? I don't know. The way that it's written right now, there's not enough information to vote on this information.
But it's based on assessment by 2 appraisers.
If I may, I believe staff said that it would go to the CBD.
The receiving areas stay the same. You can still not receive more than 25% of your allowed floor area. So it's still a very limiting amount of square footage
That's in
to a
the
receiving
CBD,
building.
yeah.
The CBD, the North Ponce mixed-use district, as well as the
That's the
Design
receiving
Innovation
area.
District.
Perfect. So now we've got 1 million TDRs through that parcel, another parcel, whatever. What's that going to look like on Ponce?
Well, the
You're
height
allowed
will
to do
remain
it
the same.
today. You're not taking that away.
Right.
Today, I'm allowed on those property, on those zone areas, I'm allowed to transfer TDRs to those receiving sites. It's not gonna change it.
That's correct. So what I'm saying is that the amount of TDRs that are out there now, which has not preserved anything except now we're preserving trees or a view or whatever, I get that. But that area there that you described perfectly is in a single-family residential area, correct? Which is not available. Even if it was buildable land, it would not be available for TDRs today. Again, it goes back to the fact that we are combining, we're taking something and then we're combining it into buildable TDRs on top of everything
Based on
else.
the
that's out there.
value of the property.
That's correct.
Now, in those property, I could, in a 4-acre site, and I don't know if that property is zoned single 1-acre states or whatever. Let's say I could do 4 houses. And as an architect, you could design a house around the trees and make that work. And yeah, you could go some mitigation and you could take some trees down and you could develop 4 houses, just as an example. I think that the difference here is that property will stay as a conservation, as a park, for lack of a better word, and I'm gonna transfer that value to the CBD district, so they could acquire TDRs and do something in areas CBD, North Ponce, and all, which are only limited to 25% of that development right. I don't see.
And one clarification, a property owner that goes through this process will then receive these TDRs and they have 2 years to find someone to buy them from them.
I thought we had taken out the
Yeah,
expiration.
that's not in the code.
Okay, I thought you had mentioned 2 years.
So we can get.
Somebody mentioned 2 years, and I was a little
It has
concerned about
a
the 2 years.
lifespan of 2 years. If they're not used in 2 years, it becomes
Could
null
you-
and void. It's right here.
And you mentioned that earlier, so could you clarify that?
Yeah, that,
The property owner that,
Is that in a historic preservation section of the code? Or where is
That's
that
in your
under?
writing right here, that it has a lifetime of 2 years. Here it is.
Yeah.
On section 14-204-9, expiration of approvals. On the first paragraph, only has 2 years of a lifespan.
section 14-204.
Yes, sir.
What, can you repeat that?
Okay,
On
that's
page-
existing language. That's not new language. There's existing language about TDRs only lasting 2 years.
That's right.
That's not new language unless it's not underlined.
What section? Again, I'm sorry.
It's
14-204.9.
14-204.9. It's on
Page 5.
page 5 of the, page 5.
it says that the receiver site has 2 years to use the TDRs.
So I need to check that, because I thought in the last 3 years or so, we had stricken through that, but I will check and make sure that's accurate.
But still, that 2-year restriction, if it's still in the code, that applies to the receiving property. So whoever
No.
buys the TDRs.
Right.
To the sending property.
Right, so,
Right, you got 2 years to be able to sell it. Otherwise, it becomes void.
I think the sending and the receiving become void, but I'm going to double check and make sure that's still in the code today.
Oh, see,
That's-
I
that-
vaguely remember Gus presenting to the
That's
commission to
existing
change that.
language. That's not, that.
No, but sometimes our code's not always updated.
No,
timely.
I'm saying, yeah. But this is existing language, so
Yes.
we're not changing anything.
but
yeah.
basically, that's something on the entity buying the TDRs. They have a certain amount of time to use it.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so let the buyer beware. in a sense.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Jill, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Menendez,
Yes.
Felix Pardo,
No.
Gonzalo Sanabria,
Absolutely not.
Ignacio Alvarez,
No.
Alice Bravo, I'm sorry,
Yes.
Alex Pusello,
Yes.
Robert Behar.
Yes. Item E4.
What was the vote for that item?
4-3.
4-3, right? Okay. Item E4, an ordinance of the, sorry. Item E4, an ordinance of the City Commission providing for a text amendment to the City of Coral Gables official zoning code by amending Article 7, Sustainability and Resilience Standards, Section 7-102, Green Building Requirements to provide National Green Building Standards, NGBS, requirements to provide, NGBS silver certification as an acceptable option for compliance, providing for repeal of provision, severability clause, codification, providing for an effective date, item E4, public hearing.
Okay. This next text amendment is relatively simple. As just read, it's Section 7-102, Green Building Requirements within Article 7. The proposed text amendment adds the National Green Building Standards, the NGBS Silver certification with Energy Star certification as an additional compliance option. As that Section 7-102A basically reads right now, it's green building requirements. The following new construction is required within 24 months after the issuance of a certificate of occupancy or completion, whichever is less, to achieve no less than leadership in energy and environmental design, silver certification under the latest applicable version of the LEED Green Building Rating System of the U.S. Green Building Council. Bless you. Silver certification by the Florida Green Building Coalition, and this is where we're adding the National Green Building Standards, silver certification with Energy Star certification. So if you look underneath that, you'll see what we currently have in the code about buildings over 20,000 square feet and so on. But all we're doing is we're just simply adding this additional standard into our green building requirements, just giving another option.
I'm also defer to Felix as an architect that will deal with this on a daily basis. I just want to make sure that you make provision that any qualified entity, authority, in addition, because you have LEED, you have Florida Green Council, you have every multiple.
Correct.
That they all will qualify.
Yeah.
Right?
100%. And the other thing is, I think that the city should lead by example. They made an exemption for themselves. I think that's wrong. They should lead by example. If you want it from the developer, we're going to do it first.
Before we go into public comments, nobody on?
No.
Okay, close the public comment. Board discussion. Felix, you want to continue it?
No,
any
they're
other
exempted.
comment, Felix?
I'd like to make the,
Well, let me finish.
yes. So the whole point is that LEED, being the forerunner, is not the only game in town.
Correct.
Okay, in the state of Florida. And the second thing is that although the city doesn't have presently a lot of buildings that are 20,000 square feet or more, they may be having that soon. And leading by example, I think, is really what we should do. So I would, in any motion, I support this, but I would like to have both of those things in there. Exactly what Robert had said, and also about the city not exempting themselves, because I don't think that's a good look.
Ignacio? Agree?
Mr. Chairman.
Let me come around, please. Nestor?
I agree.
Same.
Alice? Gonzalo?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the staff report, on section 7-102, page 2. Item 1, all buildings over 20,000 square feet not owned by the city of Coral Gables. I just want some clarification, Mr. Chairman, if this is now a compulsory requirement or not.
This is what's currently existing in the code.
Can you say that again?
Yeah, that's already what's existing within the code.
So you're saying that any building within 20,000 square feet has to abide by this,
Go through these green building requirements, correct?
it would have to be compulsory.
The only thing
Not
that's being
optional, it's
added
compulsory, right?
is the underlined portion. Yeah, that's
I
that's
understand.
correct.
So you're saying it's compulsory, it's not optional by a building owner, that building project, correct?
I mean, it's, yes,
That's
it
the way
would
it
have to
reads.
be considered, yes.
I'm also good. I just, like I said it before, make sure we add as many as we can, because lead is not the only game in town, and we have Florida Council, we have everybody else. I'm in favor of this. With that said, I'm gonna close the board comments. Do we have a motion?
I'd like to move the staff recommendation with the two specific discussed items. Word it any way you want, but it has to do, we're opening it up to the accredited conservation certifications that exist in the state of Florida. I don't think that-
Certification, not conservation.
No, I think I said certification, maybe it came out the wrong way.
Okay.
And then second thing is that the city, on city-owned property, that those parcels will also, will not be exempt.
Okay, well, let's back up for a little bit.
Okay.
That's beyond this title. We're not dealing with, the title doesn't address city-owned property. If we want to have a comment that the city should follow this, are you saying it's currently, I don't know what the current status of the city is. Is there,
Craig, in section 7-102, where the green building requirements, number one, all buildings over 20,000 square feet not owned by the city of Coral Gables. So if a comment or whatever, just to eliminate the language that from not to Gables.
If you guys take a look at number 2, the City of Coral Gables buildings and buildings constructed on City of Coral Gables property. This requirement may be waived by the city manager or city manager's designee if it can be demonstrated that compliance with this requirement would create an unreasonable burden on the construction project that would be inconsistent with furtherance of the economic development goals of the city.
so I don't have a problem if the title said removal of waiver of city's authority to waive this right. But the way the ordinance reads right now, it's a very technical change.
Right.
So if you want to have as a comment to this item that you believe that the city should not have the ability to waive it and that they should be required to meet it, then that can be a comment to
Look,
your approval.
From the development side, if I have to do it, I think the city has to do it.
I
as
agree,
well.
and I think that's what Felix was
Okay.
saying, that it, not
Yes.
not to change language, but as a comment to,
Keep in mind, Craig, keep in mind that, for example, the city owns the Biltmore Hotel. And let's say it's got more than 20,000 square feet, but it's an existing facility. They build a new facility that's 20,000 square feet or more, they should have to comply.
I'm not arguing with that this is a good idea or not. This is a pure title issue. The title to this item is related to, is just related to adding this green builds standards in section 7-102. Now you're having a substantive change where you want to take away the city's authority, which the city has a right to do, and the board could certainly recommend it, but that's beyond what's before the board. So all I'm saying is just make it a comment.
I understand what you're saying, but any condition, I mean, you're the lawyer, not me. Any condition that you put on there, at the end of the day, it is
It's a recommendation.
to the
Recommendation.
commission.
I'm saying it's a recommendation, but it can't be included in this item the way it's drafted. Now they can redo it and change the title and say, and you can make a recommendation that this should be expanded to prevent the city from waiving that right.
Felix, can you make a strong recommendation comment to follow this, to go with this? Since we cannot alter this, we want to make sure that you make your motion to include a recommendation.
Yeah, and I'll second that.
Out of respect, I'm not going to debate. I just wanted to make sure that I understand that, because the title says standards. It doesn't say just sustainability and resilience.
No, it says to provide national green
now I understand.
standards. Okay. If it said to provide these standards and to remove the waiver of the city, now if the city wants to expand the title and go forward with it, then that can be done. So I'm suggesting
have
to you
to be
that should be your
advertised.
recommendation.
That would have to be advertised with that in the
Felix,
title.
at the end of the
Exactly.
day, any new project, you and I know any new project complies. With basic, certification.
But and you and I know that also, when you have that certification, that means a lot to people, because you're the leader. If Miami Beach does it, everybody else does it, we should do it too.
And I'm not arguing the merits.
100%.
So you made a motion,
Make a motion with the first.
I'll second it.
Yep.
you made a motion?
Yes.
You want to add the language to,
The language is that the commission should
mandate that city properties also follow.
To expand this item to mandate
Lead by
that
example.
city has to meet these requirements as
lead
well.
by example, no pun intended.
Right.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Jill?
Felix Pardo,
Yes.
Gonzalo Sanabria,
No.
Ignacio Alvarez,
Yes.
Alice Bravo,
Yes.
Alex Bucello,
Yes.
Nestor Menendez,
Yes.
Robert Behar.
Yes. Last item, E5.
E5. An ordinance of the City Commission providing for text amendments to the City of Coral Gables official zoning code by amending Section 3-200, principal uses, amending Section 3-201, group homes, assisted living facilities, and child care facilities to clarify statutory capacity and licensing requirements, adding Section 3-202, certified recovery residences, to establish procedures for review and approval consistent with state and federal law, amending Article 16 definitions to add definition for adult daycare center, certified recovery residence, dwelling unit, and group residential home, providing for repeal of provisions, severability clause, codification, providing for an effective date. Item E5, public hearing.
All right. Good evening again, Vice Chair, Planning Board members, at our last proposed text amendment for the night. As Mr. Collar just read, this proposed ordinance establishes a regulatory framework for certified recovery residences, which is currently, this would be in full alignment with Section 397.487 of the Florida state statutes, which was just amended this year in Chapter 2025-182, the Fair Housing Amendment Act, which was originally enacted in 1988. So this legislation is a requirement by the state that by January 1st of 2026, all municipalities adopt procedures for review and approval of certified recovery residences. including processes for reasonable accommodations and provisions for revocation if necessary. So to briefly kind of give everybody a little bit of information and definition of what a certified recovery residence is, as it is currently defined under Florida State Statute 397.487, a dwelling unit or structure that provides a family-like living environment for persons recovering from substance use disorders. These residences emphasize peer support and shared accountability to maintain sobriety and do not provide on-site medical treatment, detoxification, or clinical counseling. Homes with 6 or fewer residents, excluding on-site staff, are treated as single-family uses. Larger homes with 7 to 14 residents must comply with all state licensing, spacing, and siting requirements with reasonable accommodations available through a clear, timely review process. Approvals may be revoked if certification is lost and conditions are violated, or the residence ceases operation for more than 180 days, consecutive days, with notice and opportunity for curing the situation. So the proposed ordinance also updates our city of Coral Gables definitions of group residential home, dwelling unit, and adult daycare center to ensure consistency with current state laws. So when drafting these provisions, the planning and zoning staff reviewed best practices from multiple other jurisdictions within the state of Florida that are currently going through the exact same process. The town of Orchid here in Miami-Dade County, the town of Cutler Bay, Seminole County, they have already gone through this approval process. And quite honestly, the framework was looked at all of these. This chapter 2025-108 is more or less gives all of these requirements that is required by the state. Some municipalities or counties, they've just basically cut and paste the Senate bill, and they've just went ahead and they've just added it into their code. We've tried to make it as simplified as possible and just make sure that we just follow the basic framework. So if you have any questions.
Is this something that the state is mandating or?
Yes. Yeah, for all counties and municipalities. Yes.
So this is very similar to when the state mandated that all ALF had to provide generators as a backup generators.
I don't know about that, but
Is that a law that became that we have to follow this?
Well,
this is
like
state
when it's local.
mandated, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
It's a state mandate.
okay. Any public, I'm open up to the public comments. Not seeing none, close the chamber. Anybody in Zoom or
No.
phone, close that too. Bring it up to the board. Who wants to start with any
Mr.
comment?
Chairman.
You want to start? Go ahead.
Thank you. I read this whole thing, and principally, I'm not against it. I just have one comment that deals with the national right of quiet enjoyment. The right of quiet enjoyment says that you're allowed to live a life free of a lot of things, and one of the things is safety. We have neighbors that could be next to one of these houses, and there's no safety mentioned here. There's no background on who are the people living in those residences, and it should be inserted that we have a right to look at who's actually going to be living there. And if they have a criminal record, God forbid something happens, then well, how are we going to look? Because this ordinance went through, and then somebody committed something that is unspeakable. And I don't understand why safety, the word safety, is not included in this language. The safety of not just the residents in that facility, but the safety of the neighbors and the community as a whole. So I'd like to add that word safety. and a background check in the verbiage of the ordinance. If you will allow me to do that, I will be happy to do that.
I think that's problematic. The state of Florida has said that these are supposed to be treated like residential units. Whether we like it or not, you're not checking a residential, somebody who resides in a home, you don't get a criminal background check. And I completely understand and sympathize with your concerns about this, but the state has made a mandate that we're not going to treat these people that have an addiction, which they view as a disease. We're not going to treat them differently than the guy next door. And so I think this would be contrary to the state law on requiring background checks on all the residents. I'm not saying it's not a bad idea, but
I tend to agree. I mean, but I don't know if we could limit that. I wish we could. I don't think we have the right to do that. Same, if I'm my neighbor, somebody buys a house next to me, I'm mandate for them to do a criminal record. So as much as I would like to agree with you, I don't know if we could do it.
I don't believe that we can do that.
All right, let's go through the
But I
comments.
think that you
through.
should speak with your state legislature and might want to make a suggestion for amendment under state law if you feel strongly that way.
Alice? Okay, let me go to Ignacio. You're the attorney here today.
I got one question. Generally, I get the point that the state's mandating this, but D1A and B.
Speak in the mic, Ignacio. please.
I'm sorry, D1A and B. Talking about planning and zoning has to review each one of these applications. What does it mean that whether the requested accommodation is reasonable and necessary to afford equal housing opportunity? What's equal housing opportunity mean?
As defined by the state, I think as Craig is saying as well, is that equal, where federal anti-discrimination protections, I think would, provide fair and consistent housing.
Is it your department reviewing this?
Huh?
Is it your department reviewing each one of these applications?
That's how with the city manager. That's
Right,
correct.
so what does equal housing opportunity mean? And then what does undue financial and administrative burden on the city mean? So
So
those,
these are,
But let me take you down, if I can, down to city manager or designee may consult with appropriate departments or external professionals and may conduct any kind of site analysis if
listen, I'm
deemed
putting my
necessary.
attorney hat on because I know every single person here is gonna have a different definition for that. And if we don't define that, and you're gonna give me more money in my account because there's gonna be lawsuits coming down on
I
that.
second that.
So, and I
Well,
know we can't change this, but on a minimum, I think A and B needs to be better defined.
I think that was taken directly out of the state law, wasn't it not?
Yeah, this is verbatim.
Well, then maybe the state
Which
law
is
needs to be
actually-
better defined.
We sent over, this has to be, in theory, I don't know what happens if you don't do it, but it has to be done by January 1. Every other jurisdiction I think we've looked at, they've basically taken these definitions in whole.
But I understand, and the state law is not I think we're all gonna be in consensus that this is not going in the right direction. We gotta do something about this, because if I have, an attorney, board member says that this is gonna open up for a lot of lawsuits, right?
Well, I think if you
forget
deny
about
it-
that. I'm in an agreement with Gonzalo that, listen, I wanna know, I can't do a background check, but I wanna know who's gonna go in there. This is,
Listen, I was a police major with Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office. And I had one of these locations in my district. We had 300 calls a year. So does that mean that it's gonna be an undue financial administrative burden on the city? There has to be, I guess call it a commentary. I'm sorry, there has to be, call it a commentary or whatever, but we need to add definitions to these that and I'm sorry, I never caught your name, but this individual and or the city manager can make a determination from.
I'd like to add something from my recent experience. I saw this debate somewhere else. Public hearing, full commission. And it did not go well. The reason is the amount of code enforcement calls, the amount of police calls, it was ridiculous. So I'm watching this. It really didn't look good. And they used a key word. This is a business model that got pushed in Tallahassee. It's a business model. Unfortunately, there is a need. If you have elderly parents, you want them to be in a group home where they could be looked at, bathed, all these things. I understand that. The problem is that normally when you look at these things too, you also have visitor parking. You have employee parking. Single-family home, in this particular area, you had to take it to another type of zoning. And we don't have that. You could put it in any single-family property next to anyone, and you're going to have people blocking your driveway, parking in the street. And the other thing is, most of our single-family homes are in septic. Now you have 6 adults, and then you have the employees. And by the way, sometimes you have certain requirements for financial requirements to comply with ACA. And ACA requires that you have to have a certain amount of employees 24/7 in those homes. You've just destroyed a neighborhood. And you're talking about a neighborhood here in Coral Gables where if you want to rent a house, you can't put it on as an Airbnb here. You have to have a minimum of 6-month lease. So the ramifications, I would think, is that you should be able to refine, comply with the state law, but add certain things which address the concerns of people that are going to be living now next to not a single-family residence, a family, let's say, but more of a transient type of thing. How is that possible? We're not doing a good job in adding a performance type of restriction, not a use restriction, which is, I think, what can't be defined or it can't be defended legally. But you can add the performance one, so you have to have a carrot and a stick.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with any of this. I'm just telling you what's required under state law. And the group home, by the way, and it's a different term now. I always get the new term, but this allowing 6 adults in a single-family home has been the law for years.
Right.
For years. They've introduced this recovery residence, and they see this as just another disability, as if, and I'm not commenting whether that's true or not true, they're seeing recovery residence is just another disability, like needing a group home for 6 adults who are not physically able to, eat and function on their own. So they just see it as just another disability.
But most of those people can't drive. And they're driven there. And they're dropped off and they live there. But depending on what type of use within the uses, then it becomes a burden. Just imagine you're in the North Gables area with 50-foot lots, and someone came in and now they've bought 3-4 homes, one right after the other. It will alter that neighborhood forever.
Well, all the laws that are related to single family, I don't think you allow parking of 10, 12 cars on a single family home. You'd be all the laws that are associated with single family are also associated to any other use.
But in some areas, let's say the North Ponce area, you could park on the street and nobody
Well, that's
says you
true.
can't, you know?
That's true.
So I mean, listen, let's go through, but this is gonna be one of those that,
This is one of these, you can't fight City Hall, but the City Hall is the Florida legislature has taken it upon itself to preempt local government for many things. They feel, I'll get on my high horse because
No home
it's
rule.
upsetting. It's upsetting, but the Florida legislature feels that they're do a better job of zoning and land use than local government.
Nestor, any comments from you?
So, yeah, I just want to reiterate what Ignacio said. You know, my concern is where it says reasonable and necessary and impose undue financial administration. Those are review terms. My fear is that the reviewer could be very subjective, and we can adopt this language, and we're preempted. And I agree. I think the language, the intent is there, but the way it reads, the city manager or the designee could find none of the applications reasonable and necessary. I mean, is that right, Greg?
Well, if,
I mean, obviously there'll be a
well,
challenge if you.
obviously, then, you know,
But
then
as the way it
then
reads-
there's going to be an appeal or a challenge.
Right,
and
but
you have
the way
to-
it reads, that, I mean, they could deny every application. Is
They
that-
could, and it might be problematic.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, look, it's either good for the plaintiff's lawyers or good for the, you know, but I
Well,
just
as
think
long
that-
as the lawyers are taken care of, that's all
Good,
that's
yeah,
important,
as
right?
long as that's very important. No, but that's the only concern that I have, that it, you know, it could, it's a bit subjective to the person doing the reviewing, and my fear is that you have an overzealous, and I'm not saying that the city manager by no means is overzealous or the designee, but they could just either approve every application or deny every application, the way it reads right now, correct?
Well, I don't think they can do it with unbridled discretion.
Arbitrary.
I mean,
They have to look at the purpose of the law and what it's designed to do.
So we've got it specifically indicated in here where conditions can be applied upon approval. And within that, you can revoke the approval as well. And there's a whole process, that subsection G as well. If one of these conditions of approval has been broken or it's inconsistent, there's that process as well.
Mr. Chairman.
So I'm just,
And I think we're going to see a lot of cases come out of this because it becomes live on January 1.
right.
And we're going to see what's happened because this has to be adopted throughout the state of Florida.
Alex, do you have any?
I echo all my colleagues' concerns, but it is what it is. It's safe.
Alex,
I have a question. Procedurally, if an application is denied, who would the appeal go to?
so if the application is denied, we've got, it must be within writing and state the basis for the denial. The written determination shall also advise the applicant of any right to appeal. So
But I think
That's
that's all we have right now.
So who does the
who's the
appeal
appealing?
No,
go to?
who reviews it?
Yeah. Who reviews the appeal?
Does it go to court? Does it go to
go to
the city
Tallahassee?
commission?
well, they might.
Commission.
I thought there was a review of a decision of a
Staff appeal, yeah, so we go to Board of
goes-
Adjustment.
goes to the Board of Adjustment.
Yes.
Okay,
And,
goes to the Board of Adjustment.
and Mr. Chairman, he said that the larger homes, what is the definition of the larger home?
The 7 to 14 residents,
No, I mean,
The-
how do you, what's a smaller home compared to a larger? Is it based on square footage of the actual residence? Or is it based on the lot size? What is it based on? Larger
so
and,
from how I understand it, the smaller home is only for living. There's no any kind of rehabilitation, there's no kind of medical treatment, anything within that site on either one of these. But the smaller one is 6 or less residents in that dwelling unit, and that
And the
more,
larger one is how many residents?
it goes from 7 to 14 residents.
Again, that's an apartment building.
So,
That's a small
I
apartment.
have another question.
but
And there's no definition of larger or smaller.
all of that is within the state statutes. All
No,
of
no,
that
but
is-
what I'm
yeah.
saying, I understand what you're saying, 7 compared to 14. I'm just asking, what's larger and what's smaller? Is it 2,000 square feet or is it 5,000 square feet? So in other words, are the ones that have 17 residents going to be all where the larger homes are in the South Gables?
We're gonna put it in Snapper Creek next to the conservation area that we're paying.
Excellent.
I think the 7 to 14 has been law. Is that right? And
Yeah, that's correct.
all we did was just update our code.
Let me get Gonzalo. Any other comment, Gonzalo, before
Yes, I
we?
do. I have a very significant comment in the sense that, let's say that Alex's house next door, it's approved for 16 plus people. You're gonna have ambulances, you're gonna have 24/7 activity, you're gonna have sirens. So you're right, Alex, your right of quiet enjoyment is gonna be severely curtailed as a neighbor. And in that sense, and Iggy Alvarez also mentioned it too as a concern. I know it's state mandated, so we're gonna have to swallow the hook and the bait, but necessarily, I think that we should have certain measures to protect our community against this type of activities within our communities. So I'm for denial, or I'm for deferment, or whatever you want, but just for a blanket approval of this. I mean, why are we here? Everything here has to be approved by us and
No,
with a
no,
rubber
but this
stamp.
is no different than the live local.
So I leave myself open.
I think there's a correction on the 7 to 14 concern.
16.
7,
It's 14, 7 to 14.
14.
Yeah, 14, okay.
So the 6 or less, as I think Mr. Pardo was mentioning earlier, that's only within that single-family component. That is what's actually, so any larger home, and you're right, it would
Duplex.
be more of a multifamily area. Now, the state has very specific licensing spacing requirements, one of them being
And-
1,000
want
foot
the-
radius.
I want the board members to understand, if you throw in ACA, you have to have,
No, but this would not qualify because the ACA, you need hallways to be 8-foot hallways and you need.
no. There's a care mandate within ACA based on the amount of patients.
Yeah.
So in other words, for every, I think it's 5 or 6, you have to have one employee.
Yeah, full-time staff member. too.
Right, but the full-time is 24 hours. So you really have 3 employees. So in other words, you got one car leaves, one car in and all that. You're not counting, again, you want to go see your dad that's in.
No, listen, I hear you.
No,
Now
I
you
think
have a
there's,
visitor.
Alice had one more question before we.
No, I wanted the answer to the original question of who the appeal goes to.
well, it goes to the Board of Adjustment, right? But the 6 or less recovery residents, there's no treatment.
No treatment whatsoever.
No treatment whatsoever. So the ACA doesn't really apply.
No, Greg,
They're not going to have employees.
I'm telling you for a fact, I know that it applies in the amount of care per the amount of patients. I know that for a fact.
Right, but this state law says there's not supposed to be.
So I can read it if.
Yes, why don't you
If that'll
read
be
it?
helpful. So the residences emphasize peer support and shared accountability to maintain sobriety and do not provide any on-site medical treatment, detoxification, or clinical counseling on-site.
So peer support are the other people that are in that home.
So who's ever living there, they're supposed to help them be sober, they're.
No, yeah, but
part
that's
of
the
that.
sober part, but like the assisted living facility, the AC.
So that's a different
Right.
kind of group residential home.
That's correct, and
That's less than 24 hours. This would be more than 24 hours. Assisted, yeah, so.
correct.
All right, do we, I'm gonna close the board discussion. Do we, entertain a
I have a
motion?
motion to approve.
Can we add a commentary to that?
You, we have a motion, we have a second. You
I'll
could-
second.
You could add amendment, to that.
I want to add a commentary to better define D1, A, and B, because it's going to give us problems.
Would that be an issue? I'm asking from a legal standpoint.
Well, I think certainly can take a look at it, but I think that there's a state law provision providing for reasonable accommodation.
I just don't want to.
That's the problem.
It might, I briefly
And
looked.
what's reasonable is based on
I briefly looked and wasn't in there. I could be wrong, but if the office making that determination doesn't have an answer, there has to be something, a criteria that has to be connected back to, where the person reviewing the application can say, okay, affordable equal house opportunity, the state statute explains it like this, this is what we're gonna say. Same thing for when does it become an undue financial and or administrative burden? There has to be that has to be connected to something.
Well, it would
So
be-
that's my commentary.
Right,
Just
no.
adding it as a commentary.
And I agree, and I think, I don't know if some of Gonzalo's comments could be added, how, without creating a discrimination.
well,
Okay?
that's,
Yeah, fire
you know,
risk.
That's a tightrope
that's
that we're
the-
walking
well,
here.
that's
So
the
with
issue.
Mr. Bucelo's permission, I would like to add that.
A friendly amendment
Yeah,
to it.
I agree. Yes.
I second that.
Because all of a sudden you could have half a dozen fire rescue, calls there.
Well, if that's the case and it becomes a nuisance, then.
But what is a
that's-
nuisance? 100
How do-
calls, 200
But-
calls, 300, what's a nuisance?
Well, I can tell you that those decisions are made every day, either by a nuisance abatement board or by a determination.
But we're not there yet. We're at his office.
Right, we're not at that yet. But he can make a determination that what's,
I don't know if this helps or not, but conditions can be applied to an application.
Correct.
And that could definitely
But
be
if you don't have a
defined.
guide, if you don't
you
have a
know.
guide to go by, the attorneys are going to become rich. Because there's going to be attorneys start suing on both sides. And especially when they move in next to an attorney. There's going to be attorneys suing on both
If
sides.
I might just tell one comment. Have you seen those Leon medical vans? Have you seen those neon green medical vans?
Stopping in front of those houses.
They're gonna be circulating right there all the time, picking up the patients. That's how they get their money, is they take it to a doctor. If it's the facility is not providing medical help there, believe me, all 6 of them will have vans. They'll get picked up, ambulances. It's gonna be a mess. If you
Let me ask you something, Craig. Any amendment to the language of what Ignacio is suggesting, or definition, meaning not amendment, but just defining those terms, are we preempted by the state to define that?
I mean, you could add criteria which would determine whether someone is out of compliance with a single-family home.
Listen,
If there's
we're on the time
undue
crunch.
calls for service, but basically, that's what a nuisance is, and the term nuisance is found to be sufficient.
And if there's enough nuisances, it would qualify for revocation?
Yes,
I
it
think
can
that
be revoked.
resolves. I mean, if you say, look, if
I mean,
if
should,
this
in the
has
event
become
that this facility becomes a nuisance, it'll
subjective,
be
I think.
revoked.
the same,
subjective.
but shows the language.
No,
shows
this
the
is,
language that's there
listen,
anyways.
the problem here that we have a gun to our head that the state is
Right.
putting on us.
Exactly.
I think we need to pass this.
We need to pass it, but with that commentary, let the commission
Yep,
deal with it.
I agree.
We punt.
I agree.
I think you could
can
pass
some-
and say you have extreme concern that these things could become nuisances and they need to be carefully
I think
watched.
we have extreme concern that these language does not have definitions. One being it could become a nuisance. Another thing, it could be
Board of Adjustment.
equal housing, board adjustments, how are they gonna decide?
What is the function of the Board of Adjustment in this particular case? Because normally when they have cases that come out, they're for variances which have to, the applicant has to prove hardship.
Well, it's
And it
not a
can't be,
hardship
and it can't be
standard.
self-imposed hardship.
This would not be a hardship, but see, we don't know, I can't know what the city manager's decision would be and why he chose to deny.
No.
I don't know,
I'm
I can't
sorry.
envision now. So you're asking me, what would the Board of Adjustment?
What is the criteria for the Board of
Well, the
Adjustment?
question is, was the city manager reasonable in denying this location, this facility?
What's the definition of reasonableness?
Well,
Are you gonna bring in every
whether-
single city manager in and see what they define it?
well,
Reasonableness
reasonableness
is
has
what's in
been
the ordinance.
in the law for many years. Whether
Yes.
somebody exercised reasonable care, that's a negligence standard. Did the driver who hit another vehicle,
as attorneys,
did they
we can argue this for
exercise
the rest of
reasonable
the night.
care? And that's based on a reasonable man, well, now reasonable person standard.
Right, but that's the thing. There's since it's a new law, there's no case law to define what would be considered reasonable. So we're kind of in new territory here. We're just going to
This
have
is
to
called
go forward.
uncharted waters.
Yeah, we're just going to have to go forward and let the chips fall where they may.
Mr. Chairman,
No, I'm
I
gonna
still
be- I
don't
know
have,
that this is gonna be, I know this is gonna be quoted in a.
I still don't have a,
Hold on, one at a time, one at a time, because please, she cannot take all, one at a time. Felix, please.
I have a question which has to do with the Board of Adjustment. The Board of Adjustment is now serving as an appeal process for the manager's decision?
I believe that it would be an appeal to decision of city staff. And the Board of Adjustment does review those appeals,
But
which
the
we
Board
never
of-
ever get, but
But the Board of Adjustment does not have that type of power in their authority. I sat on the Board of Adjustment 2 different times. It doesn't have that. It's for granting variances, not for appealing. Normally, appeals happen at the level of the commission.
so they would appeal the Board of Adjustment and go to the commission. But 14-208.4, any appeal decision of city staff, goes to Board of Adjustment or Board of Historic Board if it's a historic reservation decision. Any appeal of staff goes to the Board of Adjustment.
That's in the code, right?
In the code today, yes.
I
That's
think
not being changed.
we can certainly take a look.
It does not happen very often, Mr. Pardo.
Well, like I
But
said,
we
I
can
sat on
look
it
at,
twice.
I would suggest that maybe one of your comments would be, consider an alternative process for appeals of decision of the city
And
manager.
there,
We have a motion and a second.
Right,
And
and-
we have some friendly amendment to those.
right,
Okay.
I'm just, what I'm trying to do is just get to the point so we don't box ourselves in to something that can't be done. I think the Board of
So I think you
Adjustment,
could-
their authority has to be increased to be able to be an appeal for a different type of decision that doesn't exist at this particular time.
I want to use it.
That's all I'm saying. If you want to tie it up tight.
So we have a motion, a second, friendly amendments.
Call the roll.
Jill?
Gonzalo Sanabria,
Could you define a friendly amendment? What is a friendly amendment?
The friendly amendment,
Friendly amendment is that the motion, the maker of the motion accepted the comment that was on a friendly, typically called a friendly amendment. But
What
an amendment-
is that? What is a
Whatever
friend-
to,
basically it's to give definition to D1 and D1A and D1B. to give-
Subsection D, review and determination.
Yes, that's
Right,
correct.
so they can give
not
a
this
better
criteria.
criteria for the group selecting each application or approving each application. Did
I
I get
vote no.
Did I get it right? D1A and D1B?
That's right.
okay, now, next, Joe?
Mr. Sanabria, you said no?
Yes. No.
No, okay.
Yes, I said no.
There we go.
Ignacio Alvarez,
Yes.
Alice Bravo,
Yes.
Alex Bucelo,
Yes.
Nestor Menendez,
Yes.
Felix Pardo.
I have many concerns. I'm going to vote yes and leave it up to the commission.
Robert Behar.
I agree with Felix, exactly. I'm gonna vote yes, but I have a lot of concerns. Let the commission make
That's the
the,
state.
yeah.
No
So
win.
Yeah, it's
No
a
win.
lose-lose here.
the motion passes 6-1. That's it. No.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to retract my no vote and make it an affirmative yes vote at this time.
Okay, well, noted.
Unanimous.
Okay, so no discussion item. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Adjourned. Thank you.